humans are even more important than ever. And like there's so much slop that's going to get generated that the things that stand out that are really great are going to be really well designed. And design will be the differentiator that separates the best from everything else.
Can AI be your third teammate in design? Today I'm joined by David Gossnick, Head of AI Products at Figma, the new team behind Figma Make, a new prompt to app multiplayer space where PMs, designers, and engineers co-create in one canvas and even live edit code together. Stick around because we dig into AI as a true collaborator in a multiplayer workflow, what that looks like beyond just gimmicks, the playbook to avoid the AI novelty trap so your team actually adopts this stuff. Let's get into it. What does AI at Figma really mean today? Is it a set of feature or is it becoming a core layer of platform?
Yeah, I'd say both. We started by trying to embed AI into workflows to save designers time. We did things like renaming your layers for you, using text tools to fill in placeholder content in mocks, generating images, and we still have all of those features. But I think one thing we learned is also, the ability to raise the ceiling of what's possible with AI is also really tremendous. So it's not just about time saving, it's about making what used to be impossible possible, what used to be exceptionally hard, an everyday occurrence. And so we have a bunch of new sort of Gen AI experiences, which have been really exciting. So things like Figma Make, which is our prompt to app product, things like MCP Server, which lets developers get code directly in their IDE. And that's been really incredible.
And Figma always has been about collaboration. And how do you see AI fitting into that? And will AI itself become a collaborator in the design process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are a multiplayer first product born on the browser, and that's true with our new products as well. And so, Figma Make, our prompt app product, was multiplayer from day one. And so multiple people can be in there chatting, developing, a prototype together. You can have some people in the code canvas together. So like live code editing side by side. You can also have people using visual manipulation. And so we think it's really important that people are able to work at the level of abstraction that fits them best. And so having a PM chat while an engineer can tweak code and a designer is changing the UI all in one source of truth is like really exciting. And I think AI is a collaborator in that mix too. And so you're chatting with the AI, asking it to build things because you don't know how to code. You're getting more ideas and doing that in a way that everyone can see and participate with together. And I think over time, as well as, these models continue to get better, I think things like code may become more of an implementation detail. And the important part becomes things that Figma is already really good at. It's like, let's do a Fig Jam and like, what's the 2x2 strategy matrix and what's the flowchart of all the different, breakdown of options, and those types of altitudes will be, increasingly useful for aligning your team of humans with your team of agents as well, and making sure that they're able to, understand the high level intent and key choices.
Again, I'm a big fan of Figma and I think it's a great product company. But can you walk us through how Figma decide whether to invest in a new AI feature and what questions do you ask before putting it on the roadmap?
Yeah, being an AI PM is super fun and is unlike other forms of product development. I think there's like an idea maze of, every new possibility that you could be excited about introducing. And the reality is like some are super easy, like you'll hook up a new feature, the prompt, you'll write a basic prompt, it just works reliably, like fantastic. You'll have other cases where like no matter how hard you try, you just can't get it to work well, and like the models aren't good enough. And you could try to smash through that wall of the maze and like fine tune models and train custom models, or you can like wait and put it back on the shelf. And then I think the most interesting cases for AI product development are when you do something is just barely possible and you need to add constraints or approach the problem from a different way to work through it. And so I think one thing that's been really important in our product development process is building prototypes early in order to understand like which path through the maze might it be. And so we do a lot of using Figma Make ourselves, and like every PRD at Figma has a PM, putting their PRD into chat and building a prototype and tweaking it to get something playable to sort of feel how it works. And you can cache credentials and hook up to, OpenAI's APIs, and even have like, an AI product experience and get a sense of like, is this in the realm of viable? And so I think that is like a very new thing for product development. Like, having PMs build prototypes, let alone early in the process to figure out viability is like a new skill for a lot of PMs, but is super exciting and sort of a thing that is now possible that might not have been before.
But how can you build an AI feature that's actually useful, not just the rest of 99% of AI features are there, which is just trendy because we need to do AI?
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned earlier, like we started by identifying key workflows where we know designers spend a lot of time. We're not here to replace designers. Like we think design is even more important in the age of AI. Like there's going to be so much slop. Like there'll be exponentially more software made than ever. And so craft is the differentiator. And craft also has a lot of tedium in the process, right? And so we've looked at what are moments that are very time consuming, not strategic, not high craft. How do we automate them? Things like renaming your layers, things like searching for the right assets. And then I think more recently on tools like Figma Make, we've looked at there's so many ideas from the community. Like we have an insane volume of engagement online and forums and support with people asking in for, hey, can you add this feature and that feature? So like we have a lot of um, ideation happening in the community. And I think, the main questions for us are like, which helps, accelerate idea to production much faster for the most users, or sand down those pain points and those tedium points to make it much easier. And I think that some of that gets into the viability piece. I'm like, well, there's, can it generate 10 times as fast? Like everyone would love that, but like, what are the trade-offs to doing that?
And Figma is known for tripping fast. And how do you manage the tension between speed and responsibility when it comes to AI development?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd say the responsibility has multiple axes to it as well. And so I think one piece of responsibility is like trust and safety and is like making sure we're putting out, content that we're proud of, that it's not creating NSFW things for you as an example. And I think another piece is, quality as well. And like we know there's a ton of AI slop workflows getting created and used. And I think in this world where PMs and other personas are making more prototypes, exploring more ideas than ever, consistency is even more important. And like in maintaining the quality bar is even more important. Um, and so we're investing a lot in tools to do that. And so, Figma Make to work with your own design system is an example. Like, what if by default it's using all of your components, it retains your look and feel. You could even put a natural language guidelines file in there to describe the tone of voice and the text that's generated and your style and your brand. And like, how do we make those types of defaults easier and give more levers of control to teams and design systems teams in order to make it easy to do the right thing. So I think that's one piece is like, are we doing enough? Are we giving you enough control and levers to sort of make sure the output is great by default? And then I think there's another piece, which is when we're adding new capabilities, especially ones that are not deterministic, how do we do that thoughtfully? So we do a lot of closed alphas and betas. We've shipped many public wait lists for things that we sort of ramp people up into and look closely at thumbs up and thumbs down rate and retention, look through every single bug that comes in and every piece of feedback. And we also do live A/B tests as well, especially for more quality-driven pieces where we're sort of cranking how the backend works and we're like, is it better? We made it faster, but lower quality. And like, there's some trade-off there. Like, is that the right trade-off? Like, how do we understand that?
And what has been the hardest technical or organizational challenges in integrating AI into such a complex and multiplayer design environment?
Yeah, I think there's altitudes of challenge. So, one of them is like if imagine you're changing the Facebook news feed or Google homepage, like any of these really high traffic places, like there's such ingrained workflows that any pixel of friction is really noticeable. And like we have the same thing. And like, we have designers spending 40 plus hours a week in our tool. They notice every little change. And like, what are the changes that are helpful and welcome? And what are the changes that are confusing and, interrupt existing workflows? And so we spend a lot of time on that, on how do we make sure we're doing progressive disclosure, we're adding, more levels of control in the right moments that the right set of people will know how to find. Um, and then I think there's also challenges in the non-determinism. And so, we've had cases where there's bugs that are really hard to hunt down. And like, is it the model hallucinates some percentage of the time? Is it race conditions? Like, how do we build internal observability tools, work with model providers, and sort of have end-to-end understanding of every single step. So when things start to look strange, we're able to really quickly debug and work through it. And like that's a new methodology for the industry and for us. And it's very different than like search ranking, which we've had for a long time, but is like, a much more contained problem, I'd say. And then I think the third piece of it is cultural, which is like AI just requires a different mode of working and thinking and trying new things as techniques evolve. And so, we have hackathons as a company is like a really big part of our culture. Like 50% of new products and features have actually gone through hackathons at some point, and we're sort of bottoms up ideas, which is really cool. And I think these are also great learning opportunities for people to try out new workflows and tools themselves and to, feel comfortable failing when they're trying something new. And helps people like try out tool calling for the first time or build their own mini agent loop to understand how the core of the engine actually works. And I think that's been really helpful to have, moments like that for the team.
I heard it multiple times from employees who are working at Figma, which is AI is lowering the floor and raising the ceiling, in design specifically. But can you share an example where this really came to life?
Yeah, so what we mean by that is like lowering the floor. It's like making it much more accessible, right? It's like people who didn't think they could design or build products are doing that. And raising the ceiling is like making it possible to do things that were really hard before. And I think on the raising the ceiling side, like I've seen this on our PM team here at Figma, is like we have a lot of PMs who are somewhat designy or somewhat technical, and it's, they're not the best. And like they could probably build a prototype in Cursor, but it's probably like untenable to do that consistently, or they could probably make mocks in Figma, but it's not the level of craft. And I think the ability to use tools like Figma Make for them to like get it to the next level has been really exciting. And like the amount of effort to do that is so low that it can become a daily habit. And we've seen that for designers too. I think a lot of designers may not know how to code, and maybe they've used classic prototypes in Figma, but make code is a fundamental design medium. Like you can express more things in code, more levels of interactivity, of animation, of behavior. And we're seeing designers who couldn't reach that level of fidelity use these new tools to just get a sort of higher fidelity expression of an idea, which is really cool. And on the lower the floor side, we have optimized Make for designers and PMs to prototype and explore ideas. But these models are so good at so many things. It's been inspiring what other types of people have made just crazy things in it. And so, we've seen people build video games, like 3D video games, and make like we weren't optimizing for 3D at all. And like someone recreated Doom, like the, the classic shooter game. And even on a more personal note, like I have a 7-year-old son, and like he's made 10 video games in Make, and it's like wild. Like we're not optimizing for a 7-year-old shipping games to production as like a persona and scenario, but the ease of use of the tool and the level of capability of the models are such that like actually it's quite useful for a lot of people for a lot of things now.
I know you touched on it a little bit previously, but a lot of my designer friends are worrying that AI could replace their jobs. How do you respond to that fear?
I totally get it. I grew up using Photoshop and making like posters, and people in my hometown would like pay me to make posters for their events, and then at some point, like, those, yeah, a lot of those, gigs dried up and like moved overseas or got automated through, simpler tools and so forth. And so like there's an understandable trend in our industry of creative tools that I think leads to like reasonable concerns about job replacement. That said, my view is that like humans are even more important than ever. And like there's so much slop that's going to get generated that the things that stand out that are really great are going to be really well designed. And design will be the differentiator that separates the best from everything else. And I think design is not just pixels, right? Design is empathy for users, understanding of the problems, obsession over details, working through the mind map of all the different ways to approach a problem. And I think that AI is going to make it so much faster to do those things to really high precision, to explore all the branches, to validate the ideas. Like, the worst thing as a designer or a PM is like, it's not that you are late in shipping something, is that you ship something that is a failure. And like no one uses and people dislike, and you have to unlaunch the thing and tear out all the code. And I think one of the most exciting things of the sort of AI revolution is like everything's going to be really good by the time it gets implemented. Like all the best ideas are going to be explored and found by, the obsessive designers who think through all the details. And software is just going to get really good. Like it's going to be a kind of next level experience for consumers as well. And so I'm really excited about designers. And I think there's also a piece of like role blurring that's happening in the industry where like designers are getting more technical with the help of AI and also more able to engage in market research and strategy and things that maybe traditionally were out of reach. And we've done surveys of builders, on the Figma platform and asked them how they think about these questions as well. And like a huge percentage of them are using many more tools than they traditionally did and covering a wider range of the stack. And I really think in the future, like, you are going to see one person billion-dollar companies, and they're going to be the visionaries, the people with empathy for the users and the problem who can navigate through the solution space to an awesome solution. And like those are designers today. Like designers are really good at that. And so like I think we're going to see a generation of incredible design leaders who are sort of the super builders of the future.
Uh, Jumping on that, what do you think the designer in 2030 will look like? I mean, how will their daily workflow differ from today?
Yeah, I think that they'll use AI to complement their strengths, and so they'll use it to engage on strategy debates and do market research and figure out positioning, and they're going to use it as a thought partner in working through the details of workflows and features and how they should look and feel, and explore more options quickly. And they're going to use it to help like get it to production as well and like turn it into production code that will fit in their code base and get it shipped. And so like I think you're going to see more and more small teams that can move really quickly with designers as leaders on them. And I think, other functions aren't going anywhere either. Like engineers who have expert in all the code paths will still be around. PMs aren't either, but I think that those roles will blur more as well, and you'll have more people where the most important part is identifying the problem and connecting it to an amazing solution and using AI through that process to explore and navigate really quickly.
In a few surveys, developers seem more excited about AI than designers. Why do you think designers are a bit more skeptical?
Yeah, I mean, I think their skepticism is reasonable, and I think like I'd say for engineering, you get a spec, right? Like here's the PRD, the feature must work this way. Here's the mock, like that there's a checkbox of like did it achieve the desired intent or not. And I think design is more complicated, right? Like there's many viable options, and there's trade-offs between them, and there's taste and judgment. And I think those are things that are really core to the human in the loop and will remain so. And so I think sometimes all the AI hype leads to a feeling of like, oh, it's super intelligence. Like, is this taste so good? And the answer is like, no, it's not. Like your taste is still better. And it's gonna be for like, that's part of your role. And so I think some of it is that sort of the AI hype industry sort of over positioning the role of AI in the future. And I think some of it is also sort of internalizing on sort of what the benefits or workflows could feel like. And I'd say, things like Figma Make are early, like prompt to code as a product category. It's like a year old, right? And so a lot of people are experimenting and trying and having mixed success. Like, they'll work in contained places. They don't always understand the broader context of the project. I think those things will get better, and I think you'll start to see more cases where people will find incremental value from it, and like it'll build the most complicated prototype for me when I got stuck. And gradually it'll be able to do more and more and sort of prove and earn that level of trust and engagement. But yeah, I think for me it's mostly about you know, these are tools for designers to drive faster, more safely, and go more places they want to go. And I think a lot of the tools have not been built that way so far. And there have been more a like, no, we're going to do it for you. And like, that's not the point.
What is the one piece of unexpected feedback you've heard from users about Figma's AI tools?
Yeah, I think it's probably the speed in which people are able to express ideas. And I think when you start using one of these non-deterministic systems, like it's very hard to anticipate what the outcomes will be. And I think it's been really inspiring to see some designers really embracing it and feeling like this project could not have shipped in this timeline without these tools. And like we could have not found this solution without these tools. And the ability for a designer to jam with their PM and their eng in one surface and sort of like pathfind through. And I think we had this hypothesis, but I think seeing it start to replace slides and start to show up in crits as like the main artifact is like really exciting and like a high watermark that I think we weren't quite expecting at this phase in the market.
So I recently launched an AI feature in chat application that we were building, and the user adoption initially was really high, then people just got bored. How do you avoid the AI novelty trap where people use it once, but they don't adopt it on the long
Yeah,
term?
I think this is definitely a thing in tools in general, is like people kicking the tires on new tools and workflows and seeing what fits. I don't think that it's the be all end all for every scenario. And like it's just another tool in the toolkit. And in many cases, like for different things you're drawing, like you might, excuse me, have like a really specific idea in your head and you just want to draw it out. And like you're just drawing a single page or a couple pages to like get the point across. And like you're having a debate about the scope. And like there's a lot of scenarios like that where, a lot of these new AI tools are not the best tool for the job. And like they're over engineering and they're actually going to be slower to build a full-fledged interactive thing when really you're trying to make one specific point here. Um, and so I think for me, one of the interesting pieces is it's a tool in the tool set. And what are the workflows for toggling between these tools? And how do we make that easier? Because it's not going to be the tool you go to every single time. And so we've recently launched things like the ability to go from a Figma Make back into Figma design layers. And it's like when you are, frustrated and you're trying to prompt and it's not listening, which is true for all these tools at some point, like you can go and make that next level precision edit. And I think we're already seeing the workflow of like start with a quick idea here, finish in Figma design, bring back to make it interactive, as an example of like, all right, this is a part of the workflow, but like it's not the be all end all. Like you're going to still have a bunch of steps and a bunch of tools.
Now I want to talk more about Figma Make. I know we touched upon it a few times in the interview, but if you can put it in one line, what is the job to be done for Make versus classic Figma
Yeah,
prototypes?
Figma Makes lets you quickly generate and explore ideas with AI. And classic prototypes are for crafting and refining precise production ready user flows. And I'd say over time, these things will also start to merge more. And like there'll be less of a hard line between these tools.
There's a story about your 6-year-old son who built games with Make, and what did that unlock in your thinking about who Make is really
Yeah,
for?
I think I mentioned it briefly earlier, but like we've just been so blown away by how accessible these tools are to audiences we didn't optimize for. And I think we've focused really specifically on like designers and PMs for ideating and prototyping. And also, we have seen startup founders, ideating on ideas, publish them, get users on our platform, and raise money on Figma Make, which is like wild. It's like founding a startup with, thousands of users using a live product that like was a one-person team. And we've seen, HR teams build internal tools to help get to know other members of the team. And we've seen conferences ship marketing pages and landing pages on like, come join our conference. Here's what the details are. And so I think just the breadth of what these models are capable of outputting and the accessibility of the workflows where you can work at multiple altitudes with your team and change things has led to like a lot of bottoms up adoption by many different personas and scenarios, which has been really cool.
What are the top three unique value props for Make versus other AI prototypes? I mean, what do power users feel in week two that they don't get
Yeah, it's
elsewhere?
funny. I think in some ways these tools have been like a big step forward, and I think in other ways they've been steps backwards. And so most of these prompt tap feature tools are like really fast to generate prototypes, but they're single player, and that feels like a regression. And I think Figma Make is multiplayer, and it's like really good multiplayer, like multiple chats, multiple code editing. Most of these prompt tap tools let you see a single page at a time, and you have very limited visual manipulation. With Figma Make, you can bring these frames out into Figma Design. You can lay out the whole app and see it very quickly. You can make any edit at any level of detail, um, which I think is really exciting. And a lot of these things are like, reasonably contained in their workflow, in your workflow. It's like purely for ideation, and then you're going to go, an engineer is going to play with it and go build something. And I think we've also built with MCP Server a really awesome workflow where engineers inside of their IDE can use their coding agent to reach into Figma and grab not just Figma design layers, but also Figma Make code and have that code be translated into the local code base format structure frameworks that they're using. And so we're starting to see this be a handoff artifact where even though it's created in React at the moment, it can be translated very easily into your local code base's format and becomes like a form of input into, very high fidelity, less time, less error rate, building in production.
David, you worked on another product that is very close to my heart, which is Skoda, and now Figma. What do you like about working on building tools?
Yeah, that's cool. You're a code user as well. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how to put my finger on it. I think I grew up, my dad was an academic, so we had like an Apple II at home and we're sort of early on computers. I remember he had Adobe Photoshop for work, and I just kind of got hooked as like a 10-year-old. I was like I made little memes before those were a thing online and like printed out little posters of like my brother's head on a chicken and like made birthday cards, started like doing gigs for people in the neighborhood. And I think it was just like this personal feeling of like being really powerful, of like, especially as a kid, where it's like, can't go to my friend's house when I want to because I can't drive a car, but like I can take this thing in my head and like express it in a really compelling and rich way. That felt like a superpower to me. And I think that sort of hooked me onto the whole creative tool space. And yeah, I worked on Coda. I also had an opportunity to work at YouTube early in my career on the creator tools for video, which was really fun as well. And I think it's like the through line for me has been, like how do we give people that feeling of, satisfaction, of pride, of joy in the work, that makes them, create something share worthy and make it, as easy as possible. So it's definitely been a fun ride across these journeys.
And what do you think is the difference between how Coda build products and how Figma build products, or the
Yeah, it's
different cultures?
interesting. They are different cultures, and I think that like the products are very reflective of it. And so Shishir Mehrotra, the fantastic CEO of Coda, personal friend, mentor, I really respect. He's like very much a whiteboard thinker, and like he's one of the best I've ever met. Like he thinks in frameworks, he'll dissect any complicated problem, and like Coda is a product like that, right? Like it's very system designed, and like the information architecture on it is the innovation of it, like the ability to have docs alongside writing alongside different pages, and your data all in there. And I think Figma, Dylan Field is like has just such incredible taste, and he's like really a designer's designer at heart. And like I've personally seen him do like crits here at the company, reviewing work before a product goes out, and like he'll catch details that like entire teams missed. And it's just like really inspiring. And I think that's like they're both like really really incredibly smart, driven, high craft individuals. And I think that that manifests at different altitudes where it's like I think at Dylan it's like every pixel of the experience feeling really good. I think at Shashir it's like the bones and the structure are like incredibly solid and like they all work together really nicely.
So let me ask you this: what's your favorite Figma make? And you cannot say Doom or your whatever your son created. You have to choose a new one.
This one's like pretty meta, but as you might expect, the Figma Make team uses Make a lot, and they've recreated Figma Make in Figma Make, and it's like a really weird thing to. Yeah. So like you have like the prompting on the left, and you have the canvas on the right, and it's funny when you're looking at they made a template of it. It's like everyone on the team can like start from the template when developing new Make features, And it's very funny to look at it because it's like it's almost like a kaleidoscope or something. It's like infinite repeating. It's like you see the outer frame and inside it is like the same thing. But it's been really cool. And whenever anyone has an idea, they like copy the template, they start riffing in there, and are able to sort of like quickly show it off. And so like, even within the team, the number of times that like using the loop of making it with itself has revealed new feature gaps is like it's the whole thing is like a self-feeding snake, you know?
Figma is still a startup, but it's a really big startup. It's a really big company. And usually, when you reach this level of scale and funding and number of people, going from 0 to 1 is not as intuitive. People like to go from 100 to 1,000, more optimizing than creating things from scratch. And the latest config, it was a surprise for us. I mean, Figma Make was out of nowhere. No one really expected it. At least designers, we didn't. And most of people loved it. But some designers like, why are you changing Figma for us? And how will you guys still have this innovation? Or like, yeah, let's go start something, a new idea, that's something that we're not good at, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such an incredible time in technology right now. And like I've, personally read science fiction books growing up, thought about AI of the future, watched Star Trek, all those things, like didn't expect to have this level of AI at this point in my life. And so it's, I think, just like generally really inspiring and exciting. And I think Figma's been really fortunate to build a team of optimists, of futurists, of, high craft individuals who aren't just excited about creating the future, but like want to live in it today. And so things like our hackathon culture, where it's like everyone is nursing an idea in the back of their mind, for weeks, for months, tinkering on the side, waiting for their moment to bring it out and show everyone, is like a really exciting culture for this moment in time, especially where the edge of what's possible is changing and no one knows some of the new answers. And everyone here is, has a chance to think through it and a desire to shape it. So I feel really fortunate for the culture and the team that has been built here, and for this moment in time when like the doors of possibility are opening, and everyone's excited to see how fast we can make it to go from idea to reality.
Ah, man, it is a very exciting times indeed. Um, in your view, what is the end game of AI in design? Will non-designers build full products from prompts, or will design always need a human touch?
Yeah, I think that, fundamentally design is deep empathy for problems and the ability to find solutions that connect to them. And I think that like professional designers today, have incredible craft in working through how that is. And also, there are still very high barriers to creating software. And I think we're moving towards a world where the barriers are coming down and more people will put on designer hats on smaller scales and build micro tools for their communities or their friends or their families and work through the maze of, what actually is the pain point I need to solve and how does that connect to solutions. And I think, we're going to see, I think, many more people design as a result, which is really exciting. And I think we're also going to see the most obsessive people about the details who think through all the options, like be the most successful, which has also always been the case.
I'll be remiss if I didn't ask you this last question, but what's your favorite AI fiction book?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's so many good ones. Like, I definitely grew up a huge fan of Foundation, although I don't love the TV show as much, maybe because I like the book so much. But no, I read a one recently that a friend recommended called Diaspora. It's sort of about a future where, like, there are robots that AIs inhabit, and AIs sort of have like genome and personalities. And I think it sort of makes an interesting observation that like even with AGI, like time is a limit. And like, there's a character who's an AI in it who like wants to solve some unsolved math problems. And there's a question of like, where do you spend your compute? And like, which hypothesis on solving the proof do you spend it on? And I thought that was like, it's sort of an interesting thing where like people talk and think about sometimes like AGI is solving all the problems. And I think the reality is like in a world where models do get more and more intelligent, like there's still choices and there's still branches to explore and there's still trade-offs on those. And it's not like those things magically go away.
Where do you like to target our audience? Where can we learn more about you or Figma Make or anything in particular you like to promote?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been super fun chatting. I mean, if folks haven't tried Figma AI or Figma Make, definitely try it out, figma.com/make. And you can just get started. There's really cool templates and inspiring stuff the community has built there as well. And then me personally, yeah, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, David Kossnick, occasionally posts, observations about AI stuff as well.